This video is a little different and a little shorter than others in the series, but no less important. If you've watched my other videos or read any of my columns or books, papers, you'll know that I see a direct connection between strategy and process. For me, the core tenet of process-based management is that all organisations execute their strategy via their cross-functional business processes. About 20 years ago, I had a phone call from someone who'd scored 15 minutes of executive time the following day. This was the best chance he would ever have to make the case for process-based management, and more importantly, for Exco to take an active involvement. He asked me to summarise everything he and I had been discussing about the pathway from strategy to execution in a single simple slide. I have used the sequence I described in that slide many times over these 2 decades. I've come to think of it as the profound sequence. I think it's important. Let's see what you think. There's a direct connection and profound connection between organisational strategy and its execution via our business processes. Let's step through that simple but compelling sequence. So this is the basis of process-based management, isn't it? Processes execute strategy. And it's not optional, it's unavoidable. The only choice you've got is whether you're going to actively manage those processes to get the good outcome or just kind of hope everything works out okay. And you know the story. Hope is not a strategy. Optimism is not a plan. So we need to be very conscious of this sequence from strategy to execution. Let's step through that sequence. So organisations exist to deliver value to customers and other stakeholders. I'm sure we agree with that. And we would call that strategy. And we do that via these coordinated activities across the functions of the organisation. We call that a process. It's sensible to optimise the performance of those processes, because that gives a better outcome for customers and stakeholders, including ourselves. And that's what we call process improvement. If it's good for one process, it's good for all processes. Actively improving the performance of all of our processes, what we call process management. So process management is putting the focus on those processes that are realising the strategy. That's execution. So here's the sequence from strategy to execution. Profound sequence that really ties it all together and tells us why we want to do process-based management at all. So how do we summarise that? Well, I think the most important part about this is the stuff of the executive discussion. You know, we all have that question about how do we get better executive buy-in and commitment to process-based management. Well, I think this is fundamental to getting that commitment and that deep understanding and that regular involvement. Not just some abstract commitment, but deep and regular involvement. So it is the stuff of executive conversations and every other conversation, of course, but I think this is how we make it clear to executives that process-based management is well worth the investment of C-level time. And it underpins our reasons for doing process-based management and gives us a touchstone that we can come back to when things inevitably get a little difficult and a bit strained and we don't really have the time and resources to do as much as we'd want to do. Life is never going to be perfect, even in a process-based management world. So we need to be able to come back to some really good touchstone to say, hey, why are we doing this in the first place? What's it all about? So that's the profound sequence, as I think of it. The sequence that really tells us in simple terms, but important terms, how we get from strategy to execution. And that is the point of process-based management. Thanks for joining me for this process insight. Did you find it useful? I hope so. There are plenty more similar videos, and you might like to subscribe so you'll see a new video each week as they're released. Let me know if there are any other topics that you'd like me to cover. Plenty more information about process-based management below and at my website. You have my contact details and I'd be delighted to connect. And thanks for sharing this time with me. If you'd like to continue the conversation, I'd love to hear from you.